In this podcast, I had the privilege of interviewing Dave Hines. Dave, it was a legacy hire cop in Louisiana, and he talks about some trials and tribulations that he went through and ended up having to go in the federal prison for 4 years. I commend Steve for coming on my podcast, talking about it. Takes a big person to be willing to talk about their failures at such a grand level. But I think it's good. I think it's good for both ends of the spectrum, good for law enforcement to see when you have poor leadership or lack thereof and the situations that you might find yourself in. So I think that cops are going to find this very intriguing and interesting. But I was super humbled that he chose my podcast to come on and talk about it. On the other end of the spectrum, we talk about what prison is like for a cop, and yeah, I felt terrible for him when he's telling me the stories, especially when he talks about his kids and his wife. But he's out, he's doing good things. He's moved on to private adventures, and he's willing to tell anyone that wants to listen. So law enforcement doesn't go down the same avenue that he went and made the same mistakes he made. But it was truly a humbling podcast for me, and just seeing the perspective from him. And I don't know how he's able to do this, but he makes everything into a positive and very commendable. But let me know what you think. I absolutely love this podcast, but let me know.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country.
Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
Well, today on Beyond the Barrel, I'm going to admit to some faults of my own. I have Dave Hines for the second time. Originally, we had recorded live in Arkansas. He came, I don't know, 6+ hours to visit me to record. And the sound is complete shit. So now we have to do it remotely because his story is compelling. It is beyond interesting for me. Give you a little backstory. Dave was a cop. Some poor leadership, some actions on his own led him to go into to get in trouble and go do some jail time. But he's out now and he's doing a lot of awesome things. And he is giving us the opportunity to hear his story. I give him a lot of credit because he's very optimistic. He stays positive and through a lot of things that I don't know necessarily I would be able to. And I think it's commendable that he's willing to come talk about an awful experience for a considerable amount of time. So, floor is yours.
All right, I'm David Hines. I here in South Louisiana, and I've got a company called Emergency Incident Solutions, where me and my partner go and talk to law enforcement agencies about what our story is and how it may help them to hear it.
Yeah, and I think that's even more commendable because now you're making yourself so vulnerable in the eyes of, at one time, your peers. And we've all sat in those seats and we're like, we'll never end up like this guy. It's just the way, because you know that there's people that you've seen have talked to you in the past, probably when you're in your law enforcement career, about don't be like me, don't do this. And it's just the perception that we have, and like, this will never happen to me. I'll never be in this situation. So I commend you for coming on and talking about it. But before we get there, I wanted you to plug your stuff first. But where'd you grow up, man?
I grew up in South Louisiana, a little small town called Franklin, Louisiana, and later moved on to an Indian reservation, and now Lafayette.
Growing up, what piqued your interest in law enforcement?
My dad got into law enforcement first. He was a Southern Baptist pastor, and then he started becoming a chaplain for the local departments. And then he started enjoying doing that more. And he felt that he could reach more of the people he felt he needed to reach out on the streets than in the church. And so he went full time with the local PD and started really getting interested from there. I was got involved with the junior police when I was in elementary or junior high, and then later on joined the reserves when I became when I was old enough. and then went full time.
How old were you when you started full time?
21. As soon as I turned 21.
Growing up, did you have any other aspirations besides being a cop?
I had zero desire to be a cop before I joined the reserves. I had shared with you before how in high school my dad would call me on the weekends. He was a canine handler, and he would call and ask me to come do ride-alongs with him, just come hang out with him, and I just enjoyed that, hanging out with him. He was a really proactive cop, and so we got into a lot of stuff, and I had to sit in the car and watch the whole time, but I got to observe a lot of proactive police work, which was really fun for me, and I enjoyed doing that. Yeah.
In high school and stuff, what kind of if someone went to school with you, what kind of person were you?
I was friendly with everybody, but I didn't have a core group of friends. I hung out with my brother. My brother was 2 years older than me, and him and I were best friends, and I was really good with his friends group. And then when they graduated and left for a couple years, just didn't really have a group. My current wife, we've been together since high school, since the 10th grade. So in the 10th grade, I started hanging out with Shayna, and we were just really good friends. And then a few months later, started dating, and we've been together ever since. So she was my group. It was always me and her. Like I said, I was well liked in school, but that she was my group.
Play sports or anything along those lines?
I did. I played football from all the way up until junior year. At the end of my junior year, I had too many concussions that season, and the physician, when I went to do my physical for my senior year, wouldn't pass me. So
wow, that's
couldn't
crazy.
play my senior year. Yeah. Junior year they had 5, 3 were moderate and 2 were major. So
what during that time, what were the protocols? Were you going back into the game, or were you finding out after the game?
No, it was like I said, that's when they were starting to take it pretty serious. So early 2000s, we had trainers on staff, and they had the medical team there, and it was pretty obvious. Like I was knocked unconscious. I had all the signs. Yeah, it was from small hits. So they progressively would happen from smaller hits. So it would just be a regular block, and if our heads hit, I'm done. So
I mean, that's a lot.
Migraines. You know.
Do you have any prolonged type of head issues, headaches, anything along those lines?
No headaches, sensitivities to lights and sounds. It'd be hard to tell if some of my easily agitated for things are from that or from any number of other things that we've been through.
So fair enough. When you get out of high school, you have roughly 3 years or whatever. What were you doing then for job?
So I graduated high school early. I got out that December instead of going till May. I had enough credit, so I graduated early. And I was working construction. I got a job at a industrial construction company because I was 18. So started doing that. And then in the evening was going to trade school for welding. Got my trade in welding, and then started at an oil rig manufacturing company. So we built oil rigs and platforms. So I did that for a couple of years, and then went to an oil field company, got hired on with them because it was a more stable schedule and better money. And so did that up until I went to the reserves and then full time. So
with the were you working in like the oil fields? Were you like gone for an extended period of time in the back home?
Yeah. So at first I was on a 24-hour call out, and so I think our call out schedule was 21 days on, 7 days off. So 21 days on call, 7 days off call. That never worked out because they just call you and send you on a job. If you turned down a job, you were less likely to get picked up for the next job. So you just always took them. And then, so like, for instance, got married, went on my honeymoon, came home, got sent on a job for 3 weeks, came home for 2 days, got sent on another job for 2 weeks.
Jesus.
So And then so I left that position and went to a more stable schedule. It was a 14 and 14, so 14 days on, 14 days off, working offshore, and that was great. I miss that. That was a really good job. So
Were you
so my
out in the water then?
yep, yeah. So we were out in the water. I was on a frack boat, so we would we do fracking offshore, and so that was a really good gig.
How does that work? I'm now intrigued. We didn't talk about this last time. So you're just out in the water. What, like, how massive is it? Like one of like the barge ships? Is it like that big or?
Oh, it's a pretty big. It was a really big boat. And to say boat, it's a ship. Man, I don't remember exactly how long it was. It was a really big boat. The sleeping quarters were 4 stories up, and then there was probably 2 stories down below deck for the engine room. So just the front half, and then they had a very large rear section that had all the pumps and chemicals, and it was a big vessel. We had a cook who made all of our meals and cleaning staff that did all the cleaning. It was a good gig.
Wow. How many workers were on that at a time?
So for the company I was working for, so the boat had their own crew, and then we had our oil field company that was on the boat. So the boat crew probably had 7, and then we probably ran 12 men.
Okay.
And so yeah, do that, and then on the 14 days in, I would my wife was working, and so I just would look for something to do, and then like I said, I joined with the reserves, and ended up getting to a point where either I would work, they called it criminal patrol, but just work highway interdiction, work the city, and then whenever they had shifts that needed to be filled, I was to a point that they would let me go and work a shift, and so I was just pulling shifts for them.
How old were you when you were doing this?
21, 22. Yeah,
Okay.
so I probably did that for about a year and a half.
With the same agency that ended up hiring you the first time?
No, so that was a small city PD that my dad had started with. So I was with them, and then that last year I was with the boats. We knew that some layoffs were coming because just oil field was slowing down, and so I went ahead and started putting some feelers out for departments, and one of my local sheriff department picked me up.
When you start to get into law enforcement, did you have any like specialties in mind, or were you just happy to be on the job?
I was happy to be there at first. I really enjoyed patrol. It was a lot of fun at first, especially before we had kids. I was on a very proactive shift. I had a proactive supervisor unit on that shift, and I was wanting to get to K9. The issue was there just wasn't a K9 unit at that department at that time, and so I ended up leaving. I was a patrol sergeant there when I left, which, for what it's worth, I had only been there for 2 years. That's kind of how it is here. Made patrol sergeant, and then I ended up leaving and going to a neighboring department that had more specialized units like street teams, K9 units, warrants units, things like that.
A bigger unit, bigger department, manpower wise.
Yeah. Yeah, much bigger. Each shift, I think, it's like the first department, lieutenant sergeant, maybe 5 on shift. That's a full shift. It's 5.
Wow.
With a lieutenant and a sergeant included in that 5. And then when the second department I went to, I think each shift fully staffed was 15.
Okay.
So, and that's without specialized units also being out there, like the street team. That was just patrol.
Right on.
So
2 years there is the reason you left, just because the possibility for specialties, or was it the pay better, or all of it together?
No, I don't think the pay was even better. It was, especially if I was a sergeant, there wasn't much growth for me. I was, the next step for me would have been lieutenant, and then from there, detectives maybe, and then you spend 30 years in detectives and you retire. It's just how I felt.
I got you.
And I just wanted a little bit more. I came from a city department, although a small city. I enjoyed working the city more than out in, y'all would call it the county, but out in the parish. So like out in the country, I preferred the city stuff way more than out in the country. And so the second department I went to, although it was a sheriff's department, it had a metro unit. There was no city police departments in that parish. And so I worked on the metro unit.
I got you. So you went from a city to a county, or like a sheriff's department, but it was very rural, and you didn't have a lot of like inner city type stuff. Got you.
No, it was country. I got in a pursuit with a horse once. It was just very country.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did you ever get an opportunity to work with your father?
We did. So we were at the same department, and both working patrol for a little while. So he worked the opposite shift of me. So if I was on days, he was on nights, on the same rotation. And so, I worked with him at the same department anyway, for a little while. I want to say my mom was there at the same time too. So it was me, him, and my mom. Yeah, she was. She would hook me up with good uniforms.
Nice.
So,
yeah, that was it. I thought your mom was a cop too. But
she was.
Typically, when you have siblings or anyone that's related, they don't work on the same crew, I guess, in patrol, just for the fact that if something catastrophic happens.
Yeah. My mom was always an evidence custodian, and then later went to do crime scene investigations. So she was always on that side of it.
You said you had an older brother. Did you have any other siblings?
So I've got an older sister. She's the oldest. She was a cop for a while. She did patrol and then did a lot of undercover work for narcotics. And then I have a younger sister as well. She was never, my brother or my little sister were never in law enforcement.
Right on. How long was your sister, your oldest sister in law enforcement for?
Man, her and my dad went to academy together, which is pretty wild. So they were in the same academy together in '97. She got out. Amy must have got out in 2010, maybe 2009, somewhere around there.
Okay. I was trying to see, like, how does your pension work down there? Does she get anything with that, or is she just...
That's a great question. So she was with the tribal police department for a majority of her career. So I'm not sure how their pension works. Yeah. And then the sheriff's department pension is, so like you don't pay into Social Security. It goes into the sheriff's office pension plan. Yeah.
The same. Yeah, the same up here. We don't pay into Social Security, but it goes into whatever our pension is up here instead.
Yeah.
So you went to 3 different agencies then, yeah?
I did. Yep.
How many years total were you in law enforcement?
Right at 10.
So you did 2 with your first agency?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And then how many with your second?
2.
Okay. And then 6 with your last?
Mm-hmm.
So you go to your last agency with the aspirations of just doing something, maybe canine, but just something outside of the patrol realm?
Yeah,
I think it's pretty evident that I'll probably be speaking at the Justice X conference, but I wanted to give my little instructor spiel like everyone else is. And the main reason is because I wanted to come in here and thank all these amazing instructors that are willing to donate their time away from their family, their profession, and their friends to come and make the profession better. I don't know how I became so lucky with the ability to surround myself with amazing people in this profession. I have some of the most amazing friends in this profession. They're the most selfless individuals willing to go out on a whim and put a conference together with me and just to try to make the profession a little bit better. And I don't know how I pulled this off. I don't know what it is, but I'm beyond grateful for them. That being said, when I speak at the conference, communication is the biggest thing to me. I think that communication is the most important tool that we have as cops, and that's not verbal communication. That could be nonverbal communication. I'm going to focus a lot of my instruction on that aspect, where communication is universal. It doesn't have to just pertain to interdiction. It's all of law enforcement. If you have the ability to communicate with someone that is a multimillionaire and a guy that's homeless living on the street, your career is going to be a lot more fruitful. And you have this ability to have a lot more empathy when you're communicating and understanding and being actively listening. Someone else came up with this. I love it, so I'm going to throw it out there. As cops, we are often waiting to respond and we're not actively listening, but you can't do them both. So I think as cops, you ask a question, engage and actively watch what their response is. It doesn't have to be this such a strict format of what you're asking, chronological order or anything like that. Let a conversation flow like you're talking to one of your friends. Don't just be so rigid. And that's where I think a lot of us fail. And it's not our fault until you know that you're doing it wrong. You'll never know. Like I was very robotic as a cop, and I couldn't communicate with people. I know that for a fact. I'm introverted, and I go to the police academy and all this other stuff. But anyways, I can't wait to see you in South Carolina in April of 2026 with all these amazing instructors.
Yeah, I enjoyed patrol, but I hated some of the I enjoyed the proactive part of it. Burglaries, DUIs, those things, they weren't for me. I enjoyed I enjoyed finding people with violent warrants. I enjoyed finding like stolen cars. I enjoyed those types of things. And so I was just trying to find a canine I felt was going to get me more of that. And so I was trying to go to canine or the street team to do more of that kind of stuff.
You just like the proactive, like cat and mouse game of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was all. Go ahead.
Any proactive cop, I feel like that's what they always like. It doesn't have to be necessarily like highway interdiction, but just anything that's proactive, where you're out there like proactively preventing crime from happening. That's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like as a cop, that's what we should be doing. They don't hire us to just take calls for service after crimes have committed. We were supposed to be proactively preventing people from having crimes happen to them.
Yeah, and looking back, and this is 40-year-old me, reflecting back at how 20-year-old me was maybe reacting to some of these things. I had a hard time. I had a hard time going from call to call. So if your house got broken into, I had a hard time not taking that personal and for not being able to figure it out, or like I felt personally responsible that your house got broken into. And I would go to the next call still feeling that weight, and I'd go on the next shift still feeling that weight, and just really feeling like I just wasn't doing anything good. The same houses were getting broken into, and we just and it was just I carried a lot of guilt for not preventing that. So
within that county, what's the demographics look like? Is it wealthy? Is it poor?
And I feel like in Louisiana in general, it depends on what block you're on. On the same street, you go in the 100 block and it's nice houses. You go into the 200 and it's just rundown shacks.
Wow.
No, so the last department, it's hard to say with the county department that I work, or the parish department that I work for. It was I'd say mostly lower income. There wasn't a lot of wealth there.
Okay.
But the wealth that was there was really wealthy. And then the last department, working in the city, it was a city that was progressively losing their tax base. And so the industries were leaving, all going to Lafayette, which is nearby. So they were just losing so much. They had went through a hard time of losing their police department, and then the sheriff's department taking over the policing of the city, and how that went. And it just, you can look at the history of that city, and it's just, man, there was a lot of stuff that it was just it's a rough city.
Was so there was a city that the county absorbed, basically. Is it just based on the tax base type stuff, or was there some type of
no, the city is a big city. They I had a buddy that worked at the police department when it was still active. And he said that just one day they got a call and they said, "Hey, come turn in all your cars and your equipment. The city's shutting down. The sheriff takes over tonight at midnight." So,
wow.
Yeah, no, it's a big city. Like I said, just the city patrol by itself had there's probably eight people assigned to just patrolling the city.
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how that happens. That's crazy to me. That's just like, oh, we're done. Like
this was way before I got there, but from my understanding, the then sheriff had said that he could reduce the policing costs by absorbing it into the sheriff's department. So,
how did that turn out in the long run?
They have a police department now.
Yeah, usually, like history repeats itself. I've seen this happen many times. Not necessarily. I'm kind of a police nerd, so I look things up, and And like anytime that tends to happen is like, oh, we'll save you money, and then the citizens of that community aren't getting the same amount of service, and then they eventually like will vote or something, and typically there's a vote, and then they reenact the police department. But it's so hard to build a police department, what instead of like just having one established. So it just, I don't know, it just never seems to pan out well for the citizens of that community that vote not to have a police department.
Yeah.
So you're there for 6 years. How long before you started getting on the specialty units?
So I was there for just over a year, and I kind of made my mark. And I was in line to have the next K9 on the street team, and they had just gotten a new person appointed to run the street team. He liked me, and it was looking like I was going in that direction. And I don't remember exactly what happened, if they had not gotten as many dogs as they thought they were going to get for the street team or whatever. But I was told that it wasn't going to happen as soon as I wanted it to. And I was waiting around, but getting impatient. And I got a call from at the time, sergeant in narcotics. They had an opening in narcotics, and he called me and encouraged me to apply to go into narcotics. I interviewed and got in the first time around.
And going from patrol to the narcotics, what does your job description look like now?
So when I got into narcotics, they had just gotten away from, they weren't doing any like jump outs, or they weren't doing any street rips or any of that stuff. They had just transitioned to doing more long-term investigations. So finding a target, sending people to go do buys on it, and then building a case from there until we eventually do a search warrant and seizures.
So is this a daytime unit? Is your schedule flexible? Like, how's this panning out for you?
Schedule's pretty flexible. Now it was a great schedule, which is what kept me in the unit for a long time. I enjoyed the schedule. I enjoyed the work, but the schedule was really nice too. So we worked Monday through Thursday. We were told to do 4 10-hour days, but if we worked over any of those 4 days, then you would just flex out that. So sometimes you just work a couple hours on Thursday and then go home until Monday. We would start, I think, at 9 in the morning and just kind of see how the day went. And so it was, yeah, sometimes we go in at 9 and stay until midnight, and then go in the next day at noon. It was nice. I liked it.
Very fluid, depending on what you had going on, pretty much.
Yeah, and it depended too. So like, the street team was providing RCIs to us, so they would do the jump outs, and they were doing the proactive stops, and then they were, of course, asking if they wanted to talk to a narcotics agent, that they did. Then we had a narcotics agent on call rotation, and then whoever was on call would go and then try and flip them. If we could flip them that night and it was good enough information and fresh enough, then we would get everybody together and go do it that night. And if not, then we set up an appointment for them to come into the office or to meet somewhere and go from there.
How many individuals are in that narc unit?
7 or 8.
Okay.
Yeah, we usually ran about 7 or 8 with a lieutenant and a sergeant, and then later on, those 2 guys got promoted and they just never filled the sergeant spot, so it was a captain and a lieutenant.
You have any kids at this time?
I did. I have one. We have one going into my first year at the department. So when I was on patrol at that last department, we had one, our first one then, and then a few years later we had a second one. So just
your wife always been very supportive. I mean, she's known you since I guess you've been dating since you're in 10th grade or whatever. So
yeah, she's always been really supportive and knew that it was something that was, I hate to say just a part of me, but it was definitely something that matched my personality and my drive really well. It was a good profession for me whenever it was good.
When you get into narcs, is she supportive of that too?
She was apprehensive, and I was too. I made that pretty clear with the sergeant that I had some concerns. He assured me that those concerns were nothing to be worried about, and that those things weren't occurring, and the people who had done those things weren't there anymore, and so they had kind of flushed out some of the bad apples that were known. And so I didn't have any reservations going in, and I assured her the same thing. They're like, hey, the people who were having the issues in the unit are not there anymore, and so, yeah. So
Were you living in the same parish that you're working in, or no?
no, I lived in a parish over, so one parish over, which was nice. It was the first time. The first two departments, the first city PD that I worked for, I lived in that city, and then when I worked for the parish, I lived in the city that was in the parish that I worked. So thankfully, that parish is a really long parish, and I usually worked on the other side of it, and so yeah, it was great. It was even better when I worked for a city that I didn't live in.
Yeah, so working narcs is could be questionable off duty, wandering around somewhere where you might bump into people that you've arrested and put in prison or something along those lines.
But man, I treated people pretty well, and everybody knew my dad was a cop when I was in high school. I went to a public school, and it is what it is. Everybody knew. Everybody knew whenever I was a cop. No issues, but like I said, I was liked by everybody. I think you'd be hard pressed to find too many people who genuinely dislike me.
No, I think that goes a long way too. I mean, you have a job to do, but if you're understanding and empathetic, like it goes a long way.
Yeah.
So in narcs, what's that looking like? How's home life? How's everything going? What are you doing outside of work to kind of keep you, I guess, level-headed and not fall into, like, I don't know, dealing with just dope addicts all day, every day?
So our kids kept us pretty busy, and my wife too. I ended up starting a lawn care business. I was cutting grass, and on the days off, I was doing that or finding some project to do. So whether it be building a shed or working on the house, or eventually starting a little lawn care business, stay busy doing that. Yeah.
So you always just kind of like, you have to stay busy? I mean, just your personality wise?
Yeah, my brother and I were talking about that again today. So I think I mentioned it the last time about I crave for peace and quiet, but I thrive in chaos. I need something. I need something to do. I don't do well just sitting around. And so I like just finding something to do. I never have been into fishing or hunting or none of those things. Like I need something to do.
Right. You're pretty handy then, I guess, if you're building sheds and that type of thing.
Yeah, always been pretty handy. I'm no master craftsman by any means, but I grew up. My dad was a decent carpenter, and then later on I went and did industrial construction, and then into welding and into those things. So yeah, I've been pretty fortunate that from an early age, I've been exposed just to working with my hands.
The entire time that up to this point in your profession, have you ever been written up, suspended, in trouble, anything along those lines?
No, I had been investigated by IA twice, and both times it was unfounded. The first time, both times were at the first department, actually, or the second, the parish department, the rural one. The first one was we went to pick up somebody on an order of protective custody. It was a mental health evaluation that needed to happen, and we had to pick them up. They had the wrong address on it, so we went to the wrong house. We were at the front door and the side door and a side window. There was a gate in the back, but we didn't go to the backyard. We didn't have body cameras at the time, but we had body mics. And so a lady comes to the door. We tell her, "Hey, we're Deputy so-and-so. We're looking for this guy." And she's like, "No, he doesn't live here. He lives one house over." We're like, "Oh, okay, thank you. Have a great night. I'm really sorry to bother you. We had the wrong address." Went to the right house, got him. He was nice. Put him in the car, left. The next morning, she filed a complaint saying that we went in her house, kicked her door in, searched her house, this whole thing. And yeah, so we showed them the audio, and you could just hear us knocking on the door like everything was fine. they showed that to her and she recanted. So
Wow.
that was that. And then the second one was a Mexican guy had got arrested. I had arrested him. I had a habit that when I arrested people, like when I searched you, I put all of your stuff in your front right pocket. So when I got done searching, everything went in the front right pocket, and then we brought you to the jail. So like all his money, everything, all of that. I had got interrogated by the IEA detective because he had $500 come up missing. So they asked me about that. And then they had him, not a lineup, but we did something similar to a lineup where he's like, hey, can you point out the deputy that took your money? Because he was saying he saw the guy who took the money. He's like, no, it was the jailer, the tall, skinny black guy, not the white guy. And so they were like, yeah, it wasn't you. It was the jailer that took his money.
So someone legit took his money?
Yeah. One of the jailers took his money after I dropped them off and left. The story goes, the jailer, like they have the arrestee take all his stuff out of his pocket, put it on the counter. The guy didn't talk any English, and the jailer looked at him, grabbed his money, put it in his pocket. He was like, who are you going to tell anyway?
Wow.
So, yeah. And so we got called in on that. That guy's still a cop, by the way, which is pretty wild.
Are you kidding me?
They just fired him and let him go. He just went to another department, and then another department, another one. He got in trouble for quite a few things, but yeah, he's still a cop. Canine handler, actually.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like integrity is the only thing we have in this fucking job, and if you're stealing people's money, like what in the world?
Yeah. So I had nothing for him after that. So yeah. But those were the only two times. Other than that, letter of commendations. I got nominated for Deputy of the Year and a Medal of Honor, I think it is, or Act of Valor, well, something like that from the shooting that I was in.
You're involved in officer involved shooting?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah, right. We're actually coming up on the 10-year anniversary of that. So there was a guy. It was a department. It was the parish that I lived in, but not the one that I worked in. They had I was on a regional task force, like a response task force, and got a page or a text that they had an active shooter near where I live. They had a bunch of officers pinned down, and so I went out there to respond to it. It was a very, very long driveway, and at the end, with a wooded area and a canal on one side, and a cane field that had already been plowed, so it was just flat, and a trailer at the end of it. And he was, it was a drug deal that had gone bad. And then, so he killed the guy who came to buy drugs from or sell drugs from him. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he killed the guy, called and said, hey, this guy just tried to rip me off. He called 911. This guy just tried to rip me off. I shot him. Y'all need to come out here. So when they get out there to go make contact with him, when they go to make contact with him, he meets the officers at the door, starts shooting at them. They get pinned down behind their car, run out of ammo, and they're just pinned down behind their units. He's shooting at them with a 7 mag and a shotgun. And so he's going from window to window, just tagging them. We get out there. I set up not a mission. That sounds goofy to call it that, but I set it up something to where I hiked along the canal with some other deputies, and we did a bounding technique to get them to bound to us to get them away from that. Later on, we went up there with the Bearcat to retrieve the rest of the officers that we couldn't get, and when they did that, they left 2 guys up there as overwatch behind a shield, and when we were backing away, the guy ended up engaging those officers, and one of them got shot in the leg with the 7 mag, and as he was trying to hop to the ditch, he got hit in the other leg. I'm not sure if it was a 7 mag or a shotgun, but it took both his legs out. And so, yeah, we pulled back up. I was in the turret, and so as we're pulling up, I'm looking up and I'm watching what's happening. I see the officer hopping to the ditch. I see him get hit again and get dropped. And so I tossed smoke out. And when we came to a stop, I just came back from a tactical medic course. And so I had my tourniquets and all my stuff. And Yeah, I got to it. I jumped off the Bearcat, ran to the ditch, grabbed the guy, pulled him back into the ditch. It was a pretty big ditch. So that, and I wasn't the only one. There were several guys who left the safety of that vehicle and went out there and did work. Most of them were engaging the guy in the trailer. At that point, I slung my rifle back and just started doing some medical work on him. Found one of his legs to have a huge blowout and artery bleed, and so threw a tourniquet on it. We were still getting engaged by the guys. You can still see dirt popping up. So he wasn't getting my second tourniquet. And as I was doing my secondary search of him, I saw in his BDU pants there was a big pool of blood on his other leg. So I took his leg holster off, found another gunshot wound, put another tourniquet on him, and then we drug him out, got him in the Bearcat, and then backed out. So and then later on, I went back up. Me and some others, we went back up in the Bearcat, and I engaged the guy. Saw him come out of a window, and engaged him. So.
All the officers lived through that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So everybody's all the officers lived. Guys back on his feet. Yeah.
How was your agency with you, and how were you mentally dealing with that post?
I was fine the next day. We listen, our agency for whatever it was, our agency and the unit that I was in, the tactical unit at that particular agency, was a really dialed in group of guys that were mentally there. They were like, they offered me that award for that. And I said when we were talking about the next training that I just happened to be the guy who was there. If anybody else on this team would have been there, like I didn't do anything special in this group. Like everybody in this group would have done the same exact thing I did. So I just happened to be the lucky one to be there and have the training. And I was fortunate enough to be there. Yeah. So I was good. My wife and I talk about it now, and she always mentions it whenever we do bring it up, because I'll say it so casually, like, oh yeah, it was just when the shooting happened. She's like, that is not normal for you to just start a conversation that way. And for me, it's just like, that's my normal. The same way as I'll say I had a conversation with a guy today about prison. We talked about, I had lost a lot of weight when I first came home. He's like, what happened? You starved yourself to death in prison? He had no idea I was ever in prison. And I laughed. I was like, yeah, actually, I didn't starve myself, but I did start eating better and working out, and I lost a lot of weight. And I'll just say it so casually because that's just that's my normal. You know, you might talk about finding several kilos of cocaine on the interstate, and I'm like, man, that's wild. I've never done that. So
yeah,
that's just
I think
that's normal.
Yeah, I think once you're like kind of involved in those situations, or like even seeing dead bodies, or seeing people in these traumatic situations, it just becomes very normalized. And but I do see your wife's point by just being like, just throwing it out there like no big deal, just because she hasn't necessarily lived it.
It's really weird because we talk about that in the classes too. How that morning I didn't wake up that morning thinking that I was going to be in a shootout and put tourniquets on somebody that I knew. Like I did not wake up that morning. It was December 27th or 29th, I forget, but I was off. I heard my phone buzz. I looked at it. They said an active shooter nearby. We had gotten these before, and it turned out to be nothing. Like it's just a lot of standing by and wait. And so I was like, oh, this sounds fun. Yeah. And it could have just as easily been a standing around and wait situation as it was, the shooting. And I remember coming home, and I still had the guy's blood on me. And so I remember texting my wife and just being like, hey, like, I'm on my way home. Can you take the girls in the back room so I can just go like clean up real quick? I don't want them to see me this way. And again, I didn't say that like in this like prolific way. It was just like, hey babe, I don't want the kids to see me dirty. So you can take them to the back. And then an hour later, I was sitting in the living room playing with my two little girls. Like it was nothing. Watching a movie. What do you want for dinner? They called me the next day. The agency did. They offered me some. Hey, do you need time off? Do you want time off? I'm like, no, like I'm good. This is all these trainings that we did where y'all were yelling and screaming and throwing red Vaseline blood on us. Like that's kind of what this was for, man. Like I'm okay. I think I ended up staying home until the state police came and did the interview. They did the investigation on the shooting, and I want to say they maybe told me to stay home, but it was also around Christmas. So I was fine with that too. So they were going to offer me some days off. I'll take them.
I get it. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a mentally prepared cop for those incidents, it's traumatic as it's going to be. I think that you've kind of prepared yourself for that, and you're on the back end of that. I think that you're going to be okay. I mean, everyone's different. You might have to talk to someone or something, but I don't think it's going to be. If you're mentally prepared, it's not going to be something that's like so catastrophic in your mind that you can't stay on the job or anything along those lines. But there are people that are in this profession that aren't mentally prepared for it, so that happens and they lose their shit. And I mean, I don't know what the right way is to get people mentally prepared. But
there are some things that I'm not mentally prepared to see, and that to this day still affect me. Like during my academy, and I really hope it's changed since then, or maybe it was just in my particular academy when they were going over the sex crimes and crimes against children and stuff. They put a picture on the projector screen of some really explicit stuff, and it still affects me to this day where I'm not okay with that. And yeah, similar to what happened in my case, like I wasn't prepared to see that. There was no training that has like, hey, like this is normal to see somebody who looks this way, and go about your day. I'm still affected. I still see the guy. I still see how he looked when I walked into the office. So.
Wow. Yeah. My academy, we didn't have any of that. I mean, we talked about it, but we didn't necessarily see images of it. I don't know how I would cope with that either. So I don't think that's unique to yourself.
But I could never work in those units.
Either.
I struggled with helping them on investigations and knowing too much about it because I wasn't prepared to deal with that.
No, I'm the same way. I think I told you before, but I can rationalize a lot of crimes. So I'm like, make sense of someone else's mindset and understand why they did it. Unless you're hurting women and kids, like those are two, like I cannot make a rational. I can't think rationally about it. Like it doesn't make sense. There's no justification in my mind. And I'm not saying there's justification for it to go kill someone either, but I'm just saying like, I understand, like why people will react in those certain ways or whatever, like a heated moment or whatever. But when you're hurt women and kids, it's like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. I just can't, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And that was one of the things I struggled with on patrol, was those situations. I didn't fare well with it. And those things affected me way more than that shooting or anything like that.
Yeah.
Crashes, those things.
Dead bodies have always bothered me. Like no matter what, natural, like it just, the way I was able to cope, like with a natural old man, was be like Simpsons, Mr. Burns. That's how I like made it. Like that's what they were to me. Like, and I never enjoyed it. Like I don't like, like that's one thing that I've just never liked, seeing dead bodies, no matter what. It didn't have to be like a horrible death or anything like that, like blood, gore. It just literally dead bodies. I have no idea why. Always bothered me a little bit. But I was able to cope with it and make it work. But that's one that's always bothered me. But when I would go to domestics and see like kids living through that or seeing women hurt, it just, man, I don't know.
Yeah, listen, man, it's like that. And I wanted to rescue those kids, or I wanted to rescue that woman, and not like take her home with me, but like get them in a better position. I'm really fortunate that my wife and I, we've been together for so long, and I feel fortunate that she knows she comes home to a loving home where I would never put my hands on her. I'm fortunate in knowing that my kids come home to a home that their mom and dad love each other. They don't argue in front of the kids, or they don't disagree like that in front of the kids. My kids don't flinch whenever I walk by, and they know they'll always have a roof and food, and their needs are always taken care of. And I feel bad for kids who don't have that, and still do. Like I still feel bad for those kids that, when I've got one that's in high school, one that's in junior high, and they'll tell stories about some of the stuff that kids are going through. And it's like, man, I feel terrible for them.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I'm thankful our kids have a good home to go to.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's good, man. we kind of went off topic there, so speaking,
Happens.
sorry, that's 100% my fault. So you know, the Narc thing. How long were you in Narcs before this incident happened, and what's the dynamic between your unit and the sheriff himself?
So I was in narcotics. This happened. I got in narcotics in 2011, and then this incident happened in March of 2014. So a few years. Yeah. Um, no, the dynamic with us and the sheriff was great. Listen, I liked the sheriff a lot. He was a great guy to work for. If you were a hungry deputy that was wanting to get after it, you had the full support of your sheriff and your administration. Um, he liked the narcotics unit. He liked the street team. He would come and hang out with us in our office sometimes, or come out on once the calls were over it. And like we had a good search warrant, he'd come out there. So we'd see him pretty frequently. So good relationship with him. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was great.
And so then, you know, leading up to this incident, you get a call from your sergeant, correct?
Yeah, so I was off. It was a Friday, and I'm at the house, probably cutting grass, you know, or just doing something around the house. My wife was at work. She had a normal Monday through Friday job. The kids were in daycare, and I was just piddling around the house on a Friday. I wasn't on call, and it was my lieutenant. So my lieutenant called me, and he was like, "Hey, the sheriff just called, and they need a couple of narcotics agents to go help with a dope investigation." I was like, "All right, you know anything else about it?" He said, "No, just go meet him at the courthouse. I'll see if I can get in touch with somebody else to go with you." And he told me like whoever was on call was doing something with their kids, was at a school function, or didn't answer, whatever it was. They didn't answer, and I didn't mind going. Because I wasn't doing anything. I was a hungry guy. I enjoyed working. And I enjoyed working with the guys that I worked with. So any of them that he'd have said like, "Hey, go meet so and so," cool, I'm down. And so I got my stuff together and drove over to the courthouse. And when I got there, met with ended up being the sergeant at the time. So I ended up meeting him. He had the same information I did. It was vague, just saying, "Hey, sheriff needed 2 guys for a narcotics investigation." I told you before, like this wasn't an uncommon thing. For high profile people who would call the sheriff, or donors saying like, "Hey, my nephew has a narcotics problem. Can you send some guys to go talk to him?" We would go out there, do a knock and talk, you know, just say, "Hey, stop doing this," or try and turn him into a CI. Like we weren't going to do a knock and talk and trying to arrest somebody on a couple pills or a little bit of weed or something like that. It was always trying to get them to flip on somebody else. And so, but this happened pretty frequently when it came to the sheriff, or actually either high profile or high ranking people, or people who knew the sheriff personally that, you know, maybe grew up with them and asked them, like, they wouldn't just call the tip line and say, you know, send some people to this house. They had a direct line to him, and then he had a direct line to us.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, so that's honestly, this is what I thought it was. We go into the courthouse, we go into we get past the doors. And then when we go into the office for the sheriff, when we go in, the sheriff is behind his desk. His chief deputy is sitting in front of it. In the chair next to him is the sergeant of elderly abuse, and there's some other people in there. And then there's this, I'd age him anywhere between 75 to 85 year old man, frail and just beat to crap. His arms in a sling. His the white in his eye was red. And I don't know what vessel that is that pops when that happens, but his eye was swollen up and busted up. He's got scratches on him. You know, just obvious to me that he had gotten his ass whooped. And pretty quickly, the sheriff starts to explain to us that this old guy is his cousin, and had been having a younger guy living with him. And at some point, this younger guy had started abusing the elderly man, and over a course of a few months had sent him to the hospital a couple of times for him to receive pain medication for falling down the stairs, running into doors, things of that nature. And then he'd come home with the pain pills, give them to this guy, and he would abuse them, send them back, get more, and just the cycle continued until the hospital finally felt uncomfortable with it and called the detective of elderly abuse, and he got involved and found out it was the sheriff's cousin and went from there.
Did the sheriff not know this was happening until all of a sudden the hospital calls?
Yeah.
Wow.
Didn't know it was happening. Yeah. I don't know what their relationship was, if there was any strain to it on why that never happened. But no. And so the sheriff starts to tell us that this guy has done this in the past to other people, and starts going over his criminal history. He's got it printed out, and he starts pointing out all the different offenses that he had, and he kept saying that, hey boys, he resists every time, or he fights every time that he gets arrested. So y'all just be ready for a fight, because he's going to fight you, because every time he resists. You understand what I'm saying? I'm like, yeah, I'm down. I really hope he does. And that's how I felt. I wanted him to fight, and I wanted him to put up a good fight so I can fight him back just as hard. And Sergeant looked like he felt the same way. And yeah. So they got a warrant for him for, it was a felony for battery. I don't remember exactly what the charge is in Louisiana for the elderly abuse, but it was for that. So we got our warrant, and I got a consent to search form from the victim and the keys to his apartment, and we left to go over there. When we go in,
just you two?
Go ahead.
Just you two?
Yeah, just us two. Yep. Yeah, just us two. Like I said, we were narcotics agents. We didn't have like full duty rigs. I had a battle belt with my my drop holster, a dump pouch, some magazines, cuffs. That was it. And my sergeant had even less. He had I think he just had his gun and his badge.
Oh, wow.
So I had worked a detail the night before, and so I did have my duty rig in the back of my unit. So I took the baton off of my duty rig, and he took the flashlight off of it and put it. We both separately put, like, I put the baton in my dump pouch. He put the flashlight in his dump pouch, and we went on our way. So yeah, just us two. We went to the old man's apartment. It's a downstairs apartment. It's a duplex. He lived downstairs, and so we went there, knocked on the door, didn't get anything, unlocked it, went inside, searched it, didn't find our guy that we were looking for. Looked around it for a little bit, checked his room, didn't find anything. But we really weren't expecting to either. We were expecting to find him, not any drugs, to be honest with you. Because the hospital had recognized this was happening, so he was already out of the pills when he sent the old man back to the hospital for more. So we weren't expecting to find any drugs. We were just hoping to find him. Really, at that point, I was starting to cool off, and I was still aggravated and angry, but not as much as I was when I was in the office with the old guy. It's Friday. Wives and kids going to be getting home soon. So, we're kind of chatting it over and saying, all right, well, we'll come in and tackle this on Monday with everybody else, and we'll let the street team know, and hopefully they find the guy. And so we went to leave, we locked up, and as we're walking out, we noticed that the upstairs apartment, the door is it's a string door, and then the solid door behind it was open. And so one of us suggested that we go up there and ask her if she knows where the guy went, if he just left, or if he is known for going to X store or this store, so we can head to whatever store he maybe went to. We go upstairs, and we're met at the door by a young lady who's saying that the guy that we're looking for is hiding in her bathroom. He saw us, and we pulled up and ran up there to go hide. She said she asked him to leave, and he won't leave. So now we've got him on trespassing too. So she lets us in, and we go try to make contact with him in the hallway. And we start calling out to him. She said he's in the bathroom. So we start calling out to him in the bathroom. At first we don't get anything. And then after probably 10 seconds, 20 seconds, he starts calling back to us saying that he didn't do anything. The old man is lying. This always happens. He's not coming out. And we told him that if he doesn't come out, we're just going to come in and get him. But we're not going away. And so he came out the bathroom, hands up, but facing us. And we start yelling for him to turn around, get on the ground, put his hands behind his back, the normal thing. And he's refusing to do it. He's still pleading his case with us. And so that probably goes on for 10 or 15 seconds of us yelling at him to do what we say. He's not. And so look at my sergeant, he looks at me and go ahead. So I move forward towards him. I don't remember on this one if I did a Sparta kick, if I did a tackle, an armbar takedown, whatever I did. We ended up on the ground. Any of those things are likely. You know, it's likely that I Sparta kicked him in his hip or something like that to get him down. And but either way, he went down. When he did, my computer's going to fall. I'm going to try catching it. When he did go down, he went face down on the ground and he tucked his arms underneath him like this. We're in a small hallway, and I'm on one side of him. My sergeant's on the other. We get on top of him on either side, and each of us gives about 3 knee strikes to his side, yelling for him to give us his hands, to stop resisting, the whole thing. Not getting the reaction we want. He's not saying anything. He's not doing anything. He's certainly not fighting us like I wanted him to. He's resisting, but not fighting. And that's really what I wanted him to do. I really wanted him to turn around and start swinging on us, and to hit me like he did hit the old man. Would have given anything to have him just swing back at me, and he didn't. And just kept his arms tucked underneath him. So like I said, I did 3 knee strikes to his side. At the same time, the sergeant's doing the 3 knee strikes on his side. Grabbed the baton out of the back of my dump pouch, and I hit him twice in the back of the leg, or in the back of the thigh, with my baton. It wasn't extended just because there wasn't enough room in the hallway. I hit him twice in the back of the leg, just trying to get a reaction, trying to get him to swing his hand back to cover it or something, do something, and still wasn't getting anything. And like I said, this part of us being on either side of him, a minute max. Like it was really fast. We're yelling, "Give us your hands," and that whole thing. He's just not. The lady is standing behind us now, watching all of this happening. And I'm realizing like we just can't keep doing this. Like I don't want to go back to knee striking him. Like he's just not. We're not getting the reaction that we want. The worse he giving us his hands, like we just look stupid at this point. And so we both grab his arms out from underneath him. We pry him out, put him in handcuffs, stand him up. The sergeant says he's going to take him downstairs. So while he's doing that, I'm talking to the female and asking her, or she asked first, like, "Hey, why'd y'all do that? Like, what were y'all looking for him for?" And I was like, "Oh, he beat up the old man downstairs, and we're here to arrest him on a warrant for elderly abuse." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw him resisting." I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I was like, "Do you mind writing a written statement?" She's like, "No, I don't mind." So I got a written statement from her, saying what she saw, leading up from him coming into the apartment to us arresting him. And that was that. Left from her apartment, went downstairs. As I'm walking into the downstairs apartment, the original apartment, the sergeant has our guy by the shirt, and he's bringing him forward and kneed him in the groin or in the stomach, but in that area. I didn't care for that much, but the sergeant is also at the time one of my best friends, so I'm not going to start yelling at him like, "Hey, brother, that's not cool." I'm just, come on, man. And also, I just felt this guy was a piece of crap. So like, I don't do that, but like, also, I'm not here to defend you for getting hit. But I went nonetheless and went and got in between the two of them. It was just very casually just said, "Hey, I've got a transport. They're on the way. I'll be here in a little bit." And so he was fine with that. Grabbed him, made sure I got my written statement, went outside. Transport showed up. He took our guy to the jail. I dropped my sergeant off at the courthouse, and then I went to the patrol center to write my report and dropped it off at the jail, and then went home, and that was it. For 2 years, didn't think anything of it, and yeah, didn't think anything of it. Never went to court for it. The guy never filed a complaint. Did nothing. 2 years. Yeah. Yeah. And then, go ahead.
2 years later, then what happens? Why does this
2
all?
years later, that's why we're here. So 2 years later, I did know that there was an investigation into the department. I knew it centered around the stuff that was going on that had happened at the jail.
What
I
happened
knew
to
I
Joe?
had. So we had a deputy get taken hostage at the jail by 3 inmates, and then after that, granted, I wasn't there, so this is what I know from the court filings and from the case. After that, there was a big shakedown, and during that shakedown, there was there was a lot of abuses that happened, and different levels of egregiousness. But yeah, a lot of stuff happened there. I wasn't there for it. I was at home during that whole thing. I had just gotten off from work and went 10-7 at the house, turned my radio off, and I think maybe 20 minutes later is when they called out that there was a hostage situation. But I was already in the house and done for the night, or done for the day. I was on nights. So it wasn't until the next day when I went to work that I found out about it.
So
but yeah,
the people doing, once the hostage situation was resolved and they do a shakedown, the jailers, I'm guessing, are doing this, or do you guys like your patrol double as jailers, or is it just like?
No, so the jailers weren't doing it. They called in all the specialized units to come in and be the muscle. So Narcotics Unit, street team, patrol guys, anybody and everybody who wanted to be a part of the shakedown and get some get back. So,
How big is your jail? How many people does it hold?
I think 500.
Oh wow, okay, that's big then.
Yeah.
But it was all resolved in within a 12-hour period, roughly.
The hostage situation, yeah.
Okay.
And then, like I said, the shakedown happened probably for another few days.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, they would just go in and shake dorms down or pods. Yeah, and so they had some stuff that happened during that, and I knew the DOJ's investigation centered around that. I felt bad for the guys who were involved in it, but thankful that it wasn't me. So,
How did the Department of Justice find out about it?
So, to the best of my knowledge, the warden and the assistant warden who were there at the time of this incident, later got fired for some mishandling of paperwork and funds. And when they got fired, they ended up filing a whistleblowers lawsuit, saying that they were forced into falsely testifying during the civil trials of the stuff that happened at the jail. So the stuff that happened at the jail, there had been complaints that were filed. It had went through the court system, the civil side, and they had all been adjudicated and found not responsible for it all. So like that was all done.
Wow.
And so they ended up filing a whistleblowers lawsuit for that. And so that reopened the investigation into the department, and they had some guys who were willing to cooperate, and so it just kind of went from there. So
that opened the entire sheriff's department to Department of Justice looking into anything and everything, I guess.
Yep. Yeah. So the sergeant on my case was involved in several things at the jail. And so when he was one of the first people they called in. And when they talked to him and asked if he knew of any other times that excessive force was used, especially at the behest of the sheriff, they would like to hear about it. And so he told them. So,
and I guess the Department of Justice ultimately was trying to get the sheriff.
Yeah, they were trying to get to the sheriff. That was their to the best of my knowledge, that was their ultimate goal, was to get the sheriff, and whoever else fell with them.
Did they ever end up getting the sheriff?
They took him to trial and he ended up winning.
Wow.
So
okay.
He was acquitted. Yeah. He went to trial. There was another guy that was going to take him to trial, but he ended up dying of cancer. Yeah.
So with your particular case, so now you have the sergeant that did some, I don't even know how to word it, but some things that the Department of Justice we're looking at him specifically, and then he talks about this incident to them.
Yeah. So he talked to them about the incident. He had mentioned to me that I met up with him one day. He was still working while he was being investigated. He was still working, and at the time he was a lieutenant in the unit. And he had asked me to meet up with him, so I did. And he was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna try not to tell him about that thing you and I did for the sheriff." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "That thing with his cousin." I was like, "Oh, I ain't worried about that. No, that was nothing." Like I've got paperwork, I've got the written statement. I'm like, "Man, we're good. Like, I'm not worried about that." I was like, "I prefer you didn't. I prefer they don't know who I am. But if you're gonna tell them, like, man, I'm not worried about that."
Do you think he was wearing a wire at the time to see if you would talk about it?
I think he was wearing a wire later on.
Okay.
It was after that. There was another time that him and I got together. He was coming to help me with some gravel work at my house, and he brought it up again. And he's like, "Hey man, like, what exactly happened?" And so sat and chatted with him about what happened, and a couple of days later, get a call. So, yeah. But his story that he told the feds was a much more sensationalized version of what actually happened. And I don't blame the investigators for enjoying the story, or for I don't blame them for that. We've had CIs that has told us some great stories about the pounds of cocaine we're going to find, and then when we get there, it's not quite that. And I can't believe that we came in here and there's no pounds of cocaine, and the guy who just had a crack rock, I'm having a hard time believing him. So like and that's what's been hard about this whole thing. Like I'm not mad at the DOJ or the investigators or anybody, because I had the same drive and desire to right wrongs as they did. I didn't like being on the receiving end of it. That wasn't fun, but I could get it, But yeah, so my wife and I on our 10-year anniversary, we decided to take a road trip, cross-country road trip. And so my shooting happened in December of 2015, and this is in February of 2016, so just a few months later. We're going across, we're at the Four Corners. We're just leaving the Four Corners, and I get a call from a New Orleans area code number, and we had been doing some work for them, trying to find some people that they had some warrants for in our area. So I literally thought it was that. I pick up my phone, and they're like, "Hey, is this David Hines?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is David." And they're like, "Okay, well, this is Agent so-and-so. I'm with the FBI Civil Rights Division. Your name's come up in our investigation, and we'd like you to come in and talk to us." And man, my heart sank. I thought maybe they were going to call me in as a witness, and I didn't even want to be put in a position to have to testify against guys who I consider to be really close with. So even just having to be a part of that was making me really anxious. And then I asked her, I was like, "Hey, can you tell me what this is about?" And she's like, "No, but I think it's best you come in with an attorney."
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I kind of knew, like, hey, this isn't good. And so I didn't tell you this last time. I got off the phone with him. My wife asked me like what was going on. I was like, it's something to do with that investigation, that they got going on against the lieutenant. And yeah, I was like, I really don't know, but they want me to go in and have an attorney. And my heart is racing.
I can, imagine. Jesus.
We pull over because I need to get gas, and I call the lieutenant, and I'm like, "Hey man, they the feds just called me, and they want me to come in." He's like, "Yeah, you better bring an attorney," and he hung up.
Oh, wow.
Oh, okay. That is the last time him and I spoke.
So was this the sergeant during that? This was the sergeant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Wow.
ended up being a lieutenant. So that's the last time him and I ever spoke. Yeah.
That's
So
rough.
the rest of the road trip was pretty rough. We already had reservations in Las Vegas, so we're going up there. I called a city attorney or like a local attorney. He said that he's like, that's chess and I play checkers. So he gave me contact to a federal attorney. And I got in touch with him and made an appointment to go speak with him before going in, talk to the investigators. So once I made contact with him, he started talking with the investigators, and we're setting up for me to come in and to see what this was about. My attorney ended up being he went to college with one of the DOJ prosecutors. They had went to college together, so they knew each other. So he called her up to ask her what they want me for. So they told me that it was for the thing with the sheriff and with now lieutenant, but then sergeant. And that if I came in and told them the truth, that I'd likely be getting a misdemeanor. And so we went forward with that under that working assumption. So a couple weeks later, went in, was interrogated by two DOJ civil rights attorneys that flew in from Washington. A couple of FBI agents, a couple of AUSAs, and my attorney and me. It was a 4-hour interrogation centered around this one incident. And like I said, I think the other guy on this case with me, when he went in, he sensationalized it so much that I don't believe they believed me when I told them what happened. My story was a little bit boring in comparison to what he had told them. He had told them we went in, kicked the door in. The sheriff had ordered us to go in and beat the guy up. Found the guy in the house, beat him up, and then went back to the sheriff and reported what we had done and got high fives, and they just know that had happened. And I can see how at that point in the investigation, how his story fit a narrative that they were looking for, and mine didn't.
Yeah, I can see it.
And so I don't think that they saw that. Yeah. So, and like I said, I don't blame them per se. I'm not in the Fed side of things, but I've been on that side of an interrogation, and what you're saying doesn't fit the narrative that I'm envisioning. And so, yeah. So at the end of that go ahead.
But you have an independent witness that would contradict what he was saying.
They never talked to her.
Never?
They never talked to her. Yeah, they never talked to her.
Wow.
Never talked to her, and at the time hadn't even talked to my victim. So they ended up talking to my victim about a month later is when they were finally able to catch up with him. And his story was almost verbatim what mine was. To the point where he admitted to them that his only injuries were a scratch on the cheek and a scratch on the elbow.
And I guess they need something from him though, right? Because if you don't have a victim, like anyone could say anything. So,
yeah.
So how does this play out? Like, so you go in an interrogation for 4 hours. Did you realize that this was no longer on the level of a misdemeanor when you're in there for that long?
About halfway through, you could feel it. So like with my attorney, awesome guy. When I originally met with him, he told me what the retainer was going to be. It was going to be like $30,000 to retain the services. I can't do that. We had saved up enough money to take the kids to Disney, so we had some money set aside. And as it turns out, he was like, "Hey, I'll do it for X amount. Like, I'll go in and help you through the pleading process." Like, he's like, "I'll go in do this interrogation, and then when you go to plead guilty for the misdemeanor, I'll see you through that, and then that'll be it." I was like, "All right, that'll work." And so we worked out a deal, and it ended up being the exact amount that we had saved up for Disney.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he was there with me for that. And about halfway through the interrogation, they kicked us out of the conference room that we were in and set us in this other little small room. And I remember sitting there and telling them, I was like, "Hey man, look, like I'm really sorry, but I don't think we're acting in good faith here. I don't think this is good." And he's like, "No, it's not." I was like, "You can go ahead and go if you want, man." Like, it's this sucks. I'm sorry. I just felt really bad for him because he seemed blindsided too, and and I knew I couldn't afford for him to represent me in a way that I knew that he wanted to. And I felt bad for putting him in that situation. Really good dude. He later on, when we went back into the room, I'll finish that part. We went back into the conference room. It was more or less, hey, like, are you sticking with this story? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, this is what happened. And he's like, okay, well, we're going to charge you with a felony, civil rights violation, and we're going to put you in prison for as long as we can. And that's it. We have somebody else coming in next. You can go ahead and go. And then they kicked me out.
Unreal.
Yeah, so I remember sitting there in shock and just numb. And I'm literally watching everything fall apart. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to go home and tell my wife, and how much it was going to break her, how much it was going to break her. And yeah, at one point my attorney was like, hey, you got to get up, we got to leave. And so he got me to stand up. We walked out to show his character and how good of a guy he is. He ended up asking, he's at a really good law firm where he's at. He ended up asking if he can be put into the public defender's pool so he can stay on with me through through this whole thing. So I assure you, he worked for a lot less than what he's worth to stay on as my attorney throughout the entire process.
That is cool of him.
So, yeah, I'm eternally grateful for him for doing that.
So how do you even go about telling your wife this? Like, I'm trying to envision it. I don't know what the hell I would do.
To also put into perspective on what's going on at this time, my brother's wife had just found out that she had stage 4 stomach cancer and wasn't doing well. My wife's mom was finding out that she had stage 4 colon cancer. And so, like, we just had a lot happening. And I'll be honest with you, man, I don't remember how I told her. She knew this was going on. Like, at this point, we're just telling her, like, I'm very honest and open with my wife. Like, there's not much that I say. There's not much. There's nothing she doesn't know. Like, it's
right. I get that. This is just a rough conversation.
Yeah. And then I remember going home and contemplating, like, how do I say it in a way that won't destroy her, but knowing that it will. I mean, I have zero memory of how that conversation went. I know that it was I know she was sad. I know she was supportive of me and has been through this whole thing. She forgave me right away and has never once held any resentment or any of that towards me. She feels bad for me and she feels bad for them, like for her and the kids, but she's not mad at me, which has really been helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Strong woman.
So, yeah, the strongest.
So after this initial court date, what are you then fired? Like, what's going on at the PD? What?
So after that initial, so after that interrogation, they were like, hey, we still want you to go to work.
Wow.
We still want you to stay around. If anything happens, let us know. And I was like, yeah, no.
Yeah, that'd be rough.
So thankfully, at this point, I was on a violent fugitive task force for our department. I didn't answer to very many people and just kind of made my own hours and made my own day. So literally, I'd go to work and then go park my truck out in the cane field or go park somewhere where I couldn't be seen, and I'd sit out there and contemplate, a lot of contemplation and just try and figure out. Yeah. I did that for a few days while they figured out what they were going to do. They wanted me to plead guilty, but they were just trying to arrange how that process was going to go. And so they called me on a Friday and said, hey, on Monday, we want you coming and plead guilty. I was like, okay. So I called my current lieutenant not the other guy, but in the new division that I was in. I called him up. I was like, "Hey man, can you meet me at the office? I need to see you." He had a peripheral idea of like what was going on, but he didn't know the ins and outs of all of it. So I met him at the department on a Friday and was like, "Hey, I had all my stuff that belonged to the department already packed up. I was like, "Hey, I'm resigning today. I'm going to walk out of here the same way I walked in, with my head held up, and nobody's going to make me leave." Like I just didn't want them to fire me and have to come get my unit and my gear from the house. Like I didn't want to go through that whole deal. So thankfully the office was empty on a Friday. I dropped all of my gear off. I asked them if he would mind if I got my personal stuff out of the desk. So they stood there while I got my stuff out. We hugged and shook hands, and then I went home. That Monday, this is wild. I've never talked about this before. That Monday, we went to go plead guilty at the federal courthouse. It was me and another guy. We're pleading guilty from the same case, and the first judge they put me in front of was drunk and had to be removed during the proceedings. Wow. Yeah. So we were going through the process. We were thankful that she was our judge. My attorney was like, "Hey, she's a good judge to have." Cause he's like, as long as you're not a sex offender, like she's fair and like she's good. He's like, you're not going to get any special treatment, but you're also not going to be treated unfairly. So we were excited about her being the judge, as excited as you can be.
Right.
And yeah, we were going through the proceedings and we were getting to the point where I needed to plead guilty, and she refused to swear me in. I'd be interested to read the court recordings from this. I need to look that up. She refused to swear me in. When they asked her to read the affidavit, I remember her saying, "Oh God." And at some point, the prosecutor went up there and was like, "Can we call a recess?" She said no, and then her assistant came up and was like, "I think we need to call a recess."
Wow.
They came over to me and my attorney and asked us not to say anything and just travel back to. So we were in Lake Charles when this happened. They asked us to travel back to Lafayette, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. Travel back, and they put us in front of an emergency judge. Pled guilty in front of him, and he ended up being he wasn't the judge that sentenced me. They put me in front of another judge. So yeah, she ended up going to like 2 more cases where there was issues with her and substance abuse, and she messed up the rules for the jury on a case, and it got there was a mistrial, and then there was another case she ended up getting taken off of, and then they let her take a leave of absence, and then yeah.
Wow. Yeah, because once you're an appointed federal judge, like I don't like you're appointed by the presidents, I believe, right? Like so, you're like there for life. I thought, unless you do stuff like that, I don't even know how you get removed in that situation.
Yeah, so she wasn't removed from being a judge. She was just removed from being a judge on those cases.
Yeah, I'm just like long term. I mean, just having that kind of substance abuse, like,
yeah.
How do you keep putting her out there?
But I remember them saying like, "Hey, if y'all just don't say anything about this, like, it's probably going to be good for you." So didn't say anything to any media when they were asking, "Hey, why was this judge removed from this case mid sentencing?" It was just a lot of no comment, and
And still didn't really pan out in your favor, huh?
No, it didn't.
So when you go in there and plead guilty, how long before, like, and then are you part of your guilty plea? Are you talking or cooperating or anything like that, or is it
cooperating to the extent of? So I was one of the last ones to get called in. So all I really did was corroborate the evidence that they had against me.
okay?
So yeah, I was last one to get called in, and they asked me like, "Hey, do you know of anything?" I was like, "I have everybody that I would have known, so no, I don't know anything else." So.
And from the time you pled guilty to sentencing, how long is that?
About a year.
Oh wow, really?
I played guilty in March of 2016 and got sentenced in March of 2017, and then went to prison in April of 2017.
Is that because this whole case is still pending? Like there's still people fighting it and stuff? Okay.
Yeah, so the sheriff was fighting it. He ended up going to trial in late October, early November of 2016. So he ended up going to trial, and they were waiting to sentence everybody until after the trial, as to kind of hold everybody accountable to the trial.
You think if the sheriff was found guilty that you would have got a lesser charge? I'm just thinking like out loud now.
I think so. Yeah.
So. Do you think?
I think if my case wouldn't have been attached to all of theirs, I would have gotten less time. If it had been held on its own merit. Yeah.
So they were looking at it as like a complete corrupt sheriff's department instead of an individual incident.
Yeah, and we tried explaining this to them during the interrogation. They're like, hey, the narcotics unit went through like several phases. It was like a ring of a tree, depending on what year, depending on what agents were in there and what kind of stuff they were doing. They went through one phase where they were all unfaithful and doing a bunch of weird stuff. And they went through another phase where they didn't do anything and they just fished all the time and hung out and didn't do. Then they did another, like, it was just always, and they had a hard time discerning like the different times and who was in the units during the different times and what the dynamic of the unit was. And like I said, they didn't understand that, like, when the stuff happened at the jail, I wasn't even in the unit. I didn't know any of the guys in the unit. I had no idea who they were. Like, I knew them. I knew there was a narcotics unit, but I didn't know who they were. Couldn't pick them out of the lineup. And then when my stuff happened, it was several years after being in the unit. And I just don't think they could discern that there was like a difference between the different times and different people. And again, I don't blame them, because I've probably fallen victim to that during some investigations that I've done where, hey, this guy who ran this crew is no longer like really a part of it. He's now working and somebody else is taking it over, but I know him still. I
see. I could see it. I understand what you're saying. It's just when your freedom's in jeopardy. I think that
my wife says I lose and win all arguments from being neutral. Like I'll usually, instead of trying to argue like, hey, they shouldn't have done this or that, I try and figure out why they did it and relate to it a little bit more. She gives me a hard time about that. Like yeah.
I mean, I see both ends of that. Like I see why you're, and I see they're kind of lumping it all together. But I look at it like, when your freedom's at jeopardy, like you can't do that in my mind, anyways.
Yeah, well, for them, their freedom wasn't at jeopardy, and there was no, like, it was just a win or a loss for them, and it wasn't even a win or a loss for an area where that they live. They flew them in from DC, and it was career civil rights attorneys who were coming to South Louisiana to do justice. So
who was the attorney general of this?
So it was Eric. Was it Gardner?
No, Holder.
Holder, yeah.
Okay.
Eric. Okay, I know Eric Gardner. I'm sorry, Eric Holder, and then it was Anita Gupta, I think. It was Anita Gupta.
It was under Obama.
It was during Obama, yeah. So it was during his administration, and yeah.
So go back to the trial. Sorry, I keep taking you off there. You go and you plead guilty, and then during that, what is the AUSA asking for? What is like your anticipation of being incarcerated? How long? Those types of things. So
the AUSA was asking for anywhere from 27 to 33 months, is what they were asking for. We were hoping for no more than 2 years, and really, really hoping for a year and a day. In the feds, if you get a year and a day, you still are allowed to get good time. So you'll do less than a year. You'll do like 10 months. Whereas if you get exactly 1 year, you do day for day a year. So that's why you hear like getting a year and a day. So you don't get good time, because you accrue good time for every year you're there. And so you have to get a year and a day to get good time. So anyways, we're hoping for a year and a day, or no more than 24 months. The prosecution was asking for, like I said, 27 to 33. And then during the sentencing, the judge gave me 40 months with 2 years supervised probation.
What was the max you could have gotten?
I think my sentencing guidelines had me at like 60 something months was the max. Was the sentencing? Are you familiar with the federal sentencing guidelines?
Yeah, I kind roughly, yeah, like
Yeah.
just based, I like how they have like their enhancers and like all that type. Is that what you're talking about? Like
Yeah.
what makes it? Yeah, okay. So did the judge say why he went above even what the AUSA requested or anything? Did he give you any insight on that?
He didn't say why he went above what they said. He did say why he was given. He was. He did say that part of the reasons why the sentences were as high as they were was because part of it was punitive and meant to punish, and the other part was prevention or to yeah for prevention.
Okay.
Because he said that too many cops had gotten arrested and sentenced, and they was getting slaps on the wrist, and he didn't feel like it was being taken as serious as it should be. I'm paraphrasing that point. But
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
essentially-
But again, then like you can't. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not even like I guess lifelong criminals. Like it's still an independent thing where you're looking. I'm not looking at them because we have 1,000 retail thefts a year, and we catch 5 of them, and they get punished for the other 1,000. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't think that's how the system was set up. But I mean, I'm not a judge, so I don't know.
But to be fair, and and I've said this in the classes that because a lot of the students have a hard time wrapping their head around that. And the fact is that he was within the guidelines. So
Yeah.
he still punished me. He still punished me within the guidelines. It was more than what either us or the prosecution was asking for. But that's his prerogative. And if I don't like it, I shouldn't have been there. And,
No, I get it. I get it. I mean, yeah, I guess he didn't give you the worst case scenario. Just
yeah.
sucks
I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, it sucks for the person sitting there that you're at the worst case scenario. You're thinking in your mind you're sitting there for 33 months, and
yeah,
he adds more onto that.
Yeah, and then from there it was. So he sentenced me on the 24th. No, he sentenced me on the 29th, and I had to self-surrender on the 24th of April. So a little bit less than a month to get my affairs in order and prepare myself to go to prison.
Wife work at this time, like I'm looking at like a financial aspect now, like beyond the emotional everything.
So thankfully we had before I got called in by the feds, we had gotten really strict about debt payoff and putting ourselves in a very financially stable situation so that we can go down to one income. We didn't know it was going to be my income we were losing, but we had set ourselves up in a position to go down to a one income family. And so when this happened, we had just hit that point where we could go down to one income. And so we went down to one, and yeah. So she was working at the time. So in between getting pleading guilty and getting sentenced, couldn't find work. And so I ended up starting a mobile coffee shop. And so I was working doing that, doing mobile coffee. And yeah, so when I got sentenced, I had a month to kind of close all that out and yeah, get ready to go.
On the emotional spectrum, like what's going on through like your wife and you 2 daughters, yeah? Mm-hmm. Like what's going on like in your world, and like how are they handling this?
So we didn't tell either one of the kids until like the last week that I was home. We didn't see any benefit to making them suffer every day, knowing and having a countdown that long. And so we just tried to live as much as we can, like being as normal as we can, and not, we spent a lot of time going to the zoo, and a lot of times just trying to make memories and taking pictures and trying to do as much as we could of that. I made sure to take each one of my girls on a date. That last week that I was home, took each one of them out for a date. I went to the Build-A-Bear and got the little voice boxes I just bought a couple of voice boxes, or 3 of them actually, and made little voice notes for the girls, just telling them how much I loved them. And I got some of the shirts that I had worn and wore those for a couple days, like not one shirt for a couple days, but like a couple days worth of shirts. Then made sure they smelled like me, and I sewed them onto some pillows with the little voice boxes so they could sleep with them, and press a little button whenever I was gone. And then, yeah, the leading up to telling each one of them that I was leaving was probably to this day still the hardest conversations I've ever had to have. And you want to talk about like things that I'll never forget? Like I've literally forgotten dead bodies. I've forgotten about a lot of things. I don't think I'll ever forget how it felt, how it looked, how it sounded having to break their hearts. So it sucks it sucks knowing that to this day I've broken their hearts more than anybody else. And yeah,
I'm sure that in their mind, that's not what they're thinking about, though. The good always overrides the bad.
yeah.
How old were they during this?
So Anne, my oldest, was she was about to turn 6. I had to self-surrender a week before her 6th birthday. And then my youngest was 3. She had turned 3 just a few months before.
Did you get incarcerated somewhere close to you? And would you want them to come see you?
So I had hoped that I had tried working something out to where I could be in Louisiana, like a local facility. That wasn't going to be the case, so they sent me to Yazoo, Mississippi. So it was about 5 hours away. So yeah, they sent me about 5 hours away.
And were you seeing your kids and wife?
No, my wife. Listen, my wife was an absolute rock star for this. She came and saw me at least twice a month, and brought the kids at a minimum once a month.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they'd come up there and spend. The visitation was Friday night for a couple hours, all day Saturday and all day Sunday. She would regularly leave Friday night from here, drive the 5 hours to Mississippi overnight, be in line for visitation that morning, sit with me for 8 hours in visitation, stay at a hotel for the night, come back for another 8 hours on Sunday, drive home, get home late Sunday night, and be at work Monday morning.
Damn.
She did that a few times, yeah. Or when she just couldn't afford a hotel, she would leave on a Friday night, visit with me all day Saturday, then drive home Saturday night and get home Sunday morning.
Wow.
Yeah, absolute rock star.
That's awesome.
She surprised me one Christmas. She drove out of the way, so they didn't want to spend Christmas at home, and so they got a really good deal for Christmas at a beach in Florida, and so she drove up to Mississippi to see me on a Friday night, let me see the kids for a few hours on Friday night in their Christmas outfits, and then left from there, drove back down south, and then went on to the beach. So that way I can see them for Christmas. Yeah.
Crazy. That's amazing. Before we touch on that whole experience, how's this time of year? We're recording a little bit before Christmas, so like, do you still have? Is it emotional knowing that you missed some of that time? Still?
Oh yeah. No, and there's a few points throughout the year that I have memories of. So like I left. Listen, every time it's the loss of freedom date, so that comes up on my calendar, and I acknowledge it and recognize it that it's loss of freedom date. And then I came home. I walked out of prison in October of 2019, and then went to the halfway house for a bit. And so like we have a coming home little thing. No, man, it's because they have memories without me, and they'll talk about stuff. And even just today we were talking about a concert that's coming, and my wife had said she had already seen that person. I was like, well, when was that? So I think it was when you were gone. So like, there's just a lot of things like that. So
Yeah, I get it. That would be emotional for me. Anyways, I don't know. I mean, you stay more positive than I think than I could for sure. Probably more than most. But you always you always seem to see the silver lining in the situation, and I commend you for it because I don't know how you do it.
yeah, I just really don't have much of a choice, man. Just keep pushing forward, and I think because I know guys who went in who spent a lot of time saying "woe is me" while they were in there, and man, they're still struggling with that, and I think it just holds them back. Versus, man, nobody feels sorry for you, man. You just got to keep
Yeah.
going.
No, yeah,
And
you're right.
those, so
When you're going into prison, what is your mindset like?
that morning, so like I said, I got to self surrender, and there's a part of me that feels very thankful for being able to do that. And then another part of me that wishes they'd have ripped the band-aid off and just taken me, so I didn't have to. But that's selfish to not want to have to say goodbye. Um, hugging the girls that morning and hugging my wife and thinking with just running the numbers and knowing, looking at it very pragmatically, like I am likely going to die today. And so don't let them see that. Don't let them see that you're scared. It was literally the scariest thing that I've ever had to do. There's a lot of things I prefer to do than ever do that again.
I bet.
Knowing that, like, hey, I'm getting in the car. I had to drive myself there, get out the vehicle. Nobody's like handcuffing me, bringing me in, or forcing me to go in, kicking and screaming. Like, it's very much like, all right, this is our punishment. Let's go do this, and hopefully we make it. But I just wanted to make sure that they didn't see any fear, or I didn't want their last vision of me to be of fear or pity or any of those things. I just wanted them to, as much as they could, just feel proud that their dad was, because the way we worded it to them is I had messed up, and it's important that when you mess up, you own it, you take responsibility, and you accept whatever consequence comes your way. And that was a lesson that I felt was important for them, and for my wife too. And yeah.
So going in there, expectations are pretty awful on your end. Like you think it's going to be, worst case scenario. But when you get into there, how's that play out?
It was. So I get there, the guard who's checking me in, I remember this conversation we had with him when he looked at my paperwork and saw what I was there for. And he was saying that, he's like, "Do you have a cover story?" I was like, "No, man, like I don't have a cover story, and I'm not going to sit here and lie. It is what it is. We're just going to do whatever happens. And he's like, "All right, well, do you feel safe to go on the compound?" I was like, "Man, I don't know. Am I? Like, you're here. I don't know. Am I safe? Have you had other cops on the compound, and how's it going for them?" He's like, "Well, I'm not allowed to say. You just have to mark yes or no on this check sheet if you feel safe." And it's just a waiver of liability for them.
Wow.
So if I'd have said no, I don't feel comfortable on the compound, I imagine they'd have put me in some sort of like secure housing unit. But I knew that I wouldn't be able to get visitations. I wouldn't, possibly get moved around a bunch to other facilities, and that wasn't something I was interested in doing. And it wasn't something I was wanting to run for. I've never been one to run from consequences, or like I'm not running from whatever problem that we have. We're going to face it. Because I just felt like it was delaying whatever was going to happen if I'd have ran. And so I was like, "Nah, man, just go ahead and put me on the compound, and we're going to play this out." And so, they kicked me out, put me on the compound, and scared to death. It got really real really quick. They put me on the compound. They put me in the housing unit, and I'll say this about my time there. Nothing ever happened to me. I never got into one argument, one fight, one disagreement. Never had anything happen where I had to defend myself or be in a position to need to do so. But the threat was always there. And so there was always at any moment it could happen. which was equally stressful.
Yeah.
It took, and I still don't know. I may have just grown accustomed to being on this level of not anxious, but aware. That sitting here, like I can hear everything happening around me. I am fully aware of like anybody who's in a room with me at any given time. I'm just very aware of all those things because you had to be while you were there. You had to use all your senses when it came to smelling something burning or hearing. You know, you didn't want it to be quiet. If it was quiet, something bad was happening. You got to where like you became like very comfortable in the noisy environment because when it was quiet, yeah, something's happening. Yeah, so it was that. I'm fortunate that nothing happened. Not all the guys on the case had as good. I'd say as good of a ride. Had as they weren't as lucky as I was for that. Some of the guys had some other issues, but yeah.
Was it pretty well known pretty fast that you were a cop?
Yeah, first day, within the first couple hours of being there, I got approached and they wanted to know what I was there for, and obviously I didn't want to tell them, and so they initially thought that I was a sex offender, and as soon as they assumed that, I was like, I'm not that dog, and told them, I was like, look, man, I was a cop. I beat a guy up who had beaten an old man. You can look it up. I didn't sell drugs. I didn't rat on anybody. None of that stuff happened. The case was pretty well documented. Y'all can look it up. And so they did. The guy who ran, are you familiar with like cars in prison?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the guy who ran the car in our prison, in our dorm. So they had the guy who he had the keys to the car in our dorm. And then they had another guy who had the keys for the complex. And then a guy who had the keys for the entire institution. Because there were several prisons on the property. And so, because they had a USP, a medium, a low, and a camp. And so the guy who had the keys for us, he was like, hey, I don't know what to do with you. And so let me ask the guy above me. They came back to me the next day and was like, hey, you can sell up with us, you can eat with us, you can work out with us, you just can't do any business with us. And hey, that works for me. There was a certain level of expectations from them for me that if something were to happen race-wise, I was obligated to do work. But again, we lucked out. Nothing happened while I was there that required that. And so, yeah.
So doing business, does that mean like whatever their hustle is or whatever it is?
Yeah. Whatever hustle's going on, like I wasn't going to loan money or borrow money or get involved in any of that stuff. It was, yeah, you got to be self-sufficient, and thankfully I was. So I had a little hustle of selling coffee at one point, but that was it.
And did you were successful in it? Like no one really messed with you, like anything along those lines? No,
nobody messed with me. And so what's weird about prison like that, especially guys who are there for so long, that once you're there for a couple of months, you're not the new guy anymore. Nobody asks because you've already been vetted. And so if you sit at the table, like you're just already a vetted guy. They've already checked your paperwork. They've already, and you're not a sex offender or anything else. And so, yeah. And then as new guys came in, they would see you at the table or see you walking and just know that like, okay, well, he's already vetted. I just need to get vetted. And so, yeah.
Is it separated by race, ethnicity, and all that stuff too?
Yeah. So the prison, I've never done any county or parish time or any state time. But as far as for the feds, it's all racially segregated. Yeah.
Is there any commingling ever? Like, is there any opportunity? I don't know.
It depends on the races. And listen, I won't pretend to know the ins and outs of prison politics.
Right.
I can say where I was at, and during the time that I was there, because it may be different now. So like nobody had an issue with me selling up. So one of the cells, it was a 3-man cell, and it was me, another white guy, and a paisa. and they just didn't have an issue with it in that particular dorm at that particular time. And so, yeah.
This whole time though, your wife is holding the fort down. Stressful,
Yeah, man.
emotional on your end. Like, do you have good days, bad days? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I made a point to from the very beginning to let her know that I didn't have it worse than them, and that they were doing just as much time as I was, and I think that alleviated a lot of the um, resentment on that. Like I made sure to acknowledge that they were punished in this too, and so I think that helped. No, she was working her butt off, making sure to be present there for the kids, and making sure that they didn't miss out on things and got to enjoy life and do as much as they could. Had a lot of help from family and friends. Really thankful for that. That would help with, um, you know, watching the girls or giving Shane a night off, things like that. Yeah, that was rough, man. I yeah, that was rough.
What completely off topic, but this whole time that you're going through it, what's mom and dad doing?
My mom and dad,
Yeah, former cops.
they yeah, no, they were still cops.
Oh, they
So
were still cops at this time. Holy shit!
they were still, yeah, at the same department. Yeah, they were still cops, still in it. I felt really, really bad for them and embarrassed. And it's not an embarrassment that they felt. No, I was still liked in the department, and I'm still liked in. I'm still liked around here. They're still liked and well respected, and so most people felt bad for me, and I yeah. So they no, they stayed on. Matter of fact, they both were still working when I came home.
Wow.
Yeah, they were still working when I came home. They retired. I think my dad retired first, within a year of me coming home, and my mom the next year. Um, so at this point, my dad, I think, is a sergeant in a surveillance unit. It's a rural surveillance unit. They had a lot of farm thefts. They specialized in that kind of stuff, like the rural surveillance and the rural crimes that just regular detectives aren't used to dealing with, um, like farm equipment theft and those sort of things. So he specialized in that there at the end. Um, yeah, so they were great. They would come up and see me. I think the whole time I was gone, they came up and saw me like 5 times. I think they're a little bit older, and we were all a little concerned that they weren't going to make it all the way through. Um, and so I wanted to make sure I got to see them a couple times. So out of my family, they were the only ones that I allowed to come up and see me. So I didn't see my siblings or honestly even get to talk to them the whole time I was gone.
Is that your choice?
Yeah. So in the feds, you only get 300 minutes a month.
Okay, I get
And
that.
so I told them on my way out, and they knew this. So like whenever I was self-surrendering, I remember pulling up to the prison just outside the gates and calling each one of them and just telling them goodbye and I loved them and how sorry I was um, and that I wasn't gonna be able to call until I got home. So I didn't get to talk to them until I came home. Yeah.
If this would have been addressed on a department side or anything along those, would DOJ have ever done anything?
No. No.
So is that the
Um,
message that you kind of put out there right now for
Yeah.
long?
So that's a big thing that we push for them. We we try to encourage new officers coming in to set good standards and let it be known what your moral compass is, so that you don't get put in a situation where you have to say like, no, I'm not okay with stealing that money, or hey, no, I'm not okay with doing this. You know in your department who you can and can't do stuff around, whether it be who you can and can't go hang out at the bar with, or who you can and can't maybe use vulgar language, whatever. You know what you can and can't get away with around your department, on from small stuff to big stuff. And so we encourage new officers coming in, like, hey, this is the consequence when you don't set those standards, and when people don't know what they can and can't do around you. And then for administration, like, hey, at this point, we're in the business of holding people accountable. We hold the public accountable. You have got to hold yourself accountable. And so that is the business that we're in. It sucks. And we tell cadets too, and we tell officers, like, I would much rather have dealt with this on the IA investigation side than then to fly a freaking civil rights attorney down from DC, because they're going back with some skin. They're not coming down here to waste their time. I much would have preferred it be handled locally, and it would have had the same effect on me. I can tell you, for me personally, just saying like, "Hey, Dave, you screwed up," would have been enough for me to be like, you know what, you're right. I did screw up. I'm sorry. I didn't need 3 years in prison to know that I messed up.
Yeah, I think a lot of cops have that same. I mean, if I'm told that the chief wants to see me or someone in the admin wants to see me, my mind instantly just starts racing of anxiety and anything negative that I did lately, like, because it I don't know. I pride myself on having integrity, so like that is something I'm like, what the hell happened? And you know, my department's really good, and most of the time it's positive, but I still have that like negative condensation when they say, "Hey, meet me in my office," and I'm like, "Shit."
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think if you have good integrity and you're a good cop, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
federal prison for that long to correct a behavior it sucks, man. That's rough. I don't even know what to say.
It worked. I will never.
I'm sure it did.
I will never ever do this again. I assure you. Keep my hands to myself. So,
Well,
shoot.
you know what I had in every podcast with? Is there anything else you want to add? And somehow we've talked for almost 2 hours, and last time we talked for an hour and 40 minutes. I felt like that was forever, and this one's almost 2 hours. But I might have to break it up into 2 podcasts. I don't know, but either way, it's awesome talking to you. I love that you're willing to tell your story. I love how positive you are somehow through this shit. So I definitely commend you for that, man.
No, it's all good. There's some things that I'm really grateful for in throughout all the. And I don't know that I ever would have left law enforcement, and I don't know where I would have ended up had I stayed. I was going through a period where, like in that instance with the shooting, that wasn't my department, that wasn't my call. I wasn't even asked to go there. The call came up saying you're on standby, and I drove out there to go do it. And I don't know where that would have ended. Even being in that armored truck, I wasn't asked to go in the armored truck. I snuck my way in because I wanted to be involved in that happening. I remember driving off and seeing the SWAT commander, like, it's almost like a movie of like, I'm sitting in the truck hiding as we're driving off, and we're driving away, and you can see the dust, and you see the SWAT commander look back. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, why are you in that truck? And it's like, it's because something's going to happen. And surely it did, but I wonder at what point would I have continued to sacrifice myself for not benefiting my wife and kids. And I don't know if this was a wake-up call. Maybe that shooting was my purpose. And once that was done, something needed to say like, hey, all right, you're done. It's time for you to leave now. I don't know. And I don't know if anything would have gotten me out of that industry like this did. So.
I get it. Makes sense. My final question. What is your definition of justice?
Oh man, I don't steal from the last time. I'm sorry about the pause.
Very good.
Man, I don't know, man. It's an unfortunate necessity to the bad things that happen. So like if we didn't have this terrible stuff that happened, we wouldn't need justice. And I don't know.
It's a good one.
Very good.
No, that's good, man. I mean, it is. I think that you of all people kind of see both ends of the spectrum, and have a very unique definition, just because of both ends of the life that you've lived, kind of.
I still believe in it, and I still root for the good guys winning, and for the bad to be squashed out. And it's a really weird position to be in. Yeah.
How old are you, man?
I'm just turned 40. So just
How are
turned 40.
you mentally with everything?
That is a great question. How am I with everything? I live a relatively high stress life, and I haven't quite learned how to separate things not being a life and death situation. And so, even now, like I own a coffee shop, and getting the orders out in time is just as important to me as, solving a case or something that's really important in that line of work. Like I haven't been able to turn that mindset off. So like solving a case, it's figuring out the cost of goods and the cost of labor and all of these things. I go at it with the same mindset as I would have, trying to figure out a case or, yeah.
Is that self-induced type of stress and
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As
I get older and through my time in prison, I had obviously a lot of time to reflect. And I've recognized, like my anxiety, which you never could have convinced me before that I had anxiety. And I've recognized like how to identify like when I am feeling anxious or what that looks like. For me, anxiety does not come from me shutting down. It comes from me like doubling down. And so like when I'm feeling anxious, like I will double down. Yeah.
I think that, I mean, if you have enough self-reflection to see it and know what you do, and I think that you're on the right path to whatever makes it work for you, and you have that peace at home or whatever it is, you're on the right path to have that good home life balance. And the stress that you put on yourself, it's probably no different than any other cop. The stress that we put on ourselves, it's probably not necessary, but it's the way we live. We thrive in chaos, and we wouldn't be cops if we didn't do well in chaos. So
yeah.
But I appreciate it, man. Sorry
I appreciate
to keep
you, man.
so long.
No, you're good.
All right, but yeah, man. If you have anything, reach out, and it's been nothing but a pleasure.
Same. If there's anything I can do, we also help with departments. Something I don't know if I talked to you about, that we help with the departments. If they have somebody who's going through something similar to this or anything else, if they want to reach out and just have me talk to that officer, what we always try to tell them is that this is a mountain that can be climbed, and to prevent them from harming themselves. That is something that we have seen a lot with these types of cases, where the officers don't think that they can get through this, and we try to encourage them that they can. And so if we're here if somebody's going through something like that, kind of help them. So
where can they find you at again?
emergencyincident solutions@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it again. Thank you.
Thank you.